I want to give a huge shout out to the construction workers who are with us today, helping to build this project and build our province. Now, construction sites like the one behind me are becoming an increasingly common sight across our biggest cities and even our smallest towns. And while that's great news for our province's economy, it also represents challenges that we need to address head on. Just last week, the Ontario Independent Electricity Systems Operator announced that our government will need 75% more electricity here in Ontario by the year 2050. That's more power for our homes, businesses, and for new industry. And while we have an ambitious plan to expand our generation, from refurbishing and expanding our nuclear fleet to the largest competitive energy procurement in Ontario history, there is a lot more we must do. And one of the big challenges we face is making sure that we get that power to the new homes in businesses like the one behind us today. Because without access to power, projects like this will never be built. Power is really what makes them come alive. And our government is committed to making it easier and more affordable for every project, whether it's a new housing development, a new business park, or a new manufacturing plant to connect to our clean grid. But under the current rules, this process can be slow and costly, increasing the cost for home buyers and for businesses. And that's why we are pleased to announce today that our government is taking 3 concrete actions to remove those barriers to reduce costs for young families. And the first of which is that our government will introduce new legislation that, if passed, will reduce the upfront capital costs associated with last mile connections. That final step that links new homes and businesses to Ontario's clean electricity grid. Today, first movers will have to pay the full cost for electrical system upgrades, even if they won't fully utilize those benefits themselves. That means nothing gets built in constrained areas because no one wants to take on the risk and the extra cost. But with new regulatory making authority, we could allow the Energy Board to instead spread those costs over all customers in high growth areas who connect to the line, not just the first. Let me give you an example. Under the old system, a residential development of 200 homes would pay the full cost of building new infrastructure needed to connect to the grid. Say those upgrades could cost $10 million in this example. That means every new homeowner is paying $20,000 per home, hiking the cost further on a young family, a new Canadian, and so many others aspiring for home ownership. Under our plan, the project would only have to pay for what they will use, their load, and the result is that the cost is now $4,000 per home, saving an average family in this example $16,000 in stealth fees. But that's not all. Our government also asked the Ontario Energy Board to come forward with more ways to reduce costs and get more homes built. In this morning, we asked the OEB to proceed with implementing recommendations as quickly as possible. One of the most impactful actions we will take is to extend the revenue horizon for residential developments from 25 years to up to 40 years. Sort of like a mortgage, it's going to be spreading those costs over a longer period of time. What that means is that the costs of new electricity infrastructure, which will serve our province for generations, can be spread over a longer period, as I said, just like amortizing your mortgage. We've also asked the Ontario Energy Board to implement the feedback from families and industry and skilled workers as we want to extend the connection horizon to up to 15 years to provide much needed clarity for when connection horizon extension should be required. This is what working for the next generation looks like as we build the homes and the transit and the subways and Canada's largest energy expansion in our history. It's all about thinking and planning and building for tomorrow for our children and grandchildren. And we really would not be here today if not for the Premier's leadership, if not for the strong advocacy of Ministers Calandra and Fideli, and credit where it is due to Minister Sam Oosterhoff, who has been a total champion of driving this reform. The end result is lower costs for our homeowners. And finally, later this year, our government will also convene the first meeting of a new housing electricity growth forum that will bring together municipalities with housing, with provincial housing targets, with local utilities, with local industry, and with Ontario's Energy Board to discuss more ways to accelerate the grid, to dramatically reduce the barriers to home building, to job-creating investment and agricultural expansion. These actions will reduce costs, of connecting to the grid, and that will form a key part of our government's vision for the future of the energy sector, a vision that we will unveil in the days ahead. A vision with a focus on ensuring that every family, every senior, every business can benefit from affordable energy. Thank you so much. I'm now going to turn it over to Minister Oosterhoff. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Lecce, and it is a real privilege and pleasure to be here today as we take bold steps to meet the growing energy needs of Ontario's communities and industries. Energy demand is skyrocketing across Ontario, driven by expansion and net new growth in housing and in sectors like steelmaking, electric vehicle manufacturing, agriculture, and housing development, as well as the modernization and electrification of industry. These industries don't just need clean, reliable energy, they need it to be affordable too. And so we welcome the growth we've seen in this province and the prosperous future it will bring for our youth and families. The IESO's annual forecast, as the Minister Lecce spoke about, now sees an increase of 75% by 2050, a steep increase from last year's projection. Energy demand is not just growing, it's growing exponentially. Industrial demand alone is expected to grow by 58% by 2035. That's like adding the equivalent of another city the size of Toronto to the grid. Data centers alone will drive 13% of new electricity demand by 2035. But our government is taking proactive action. Under the leadership of Minister Lecce and Premier Ford, we've launched the largest battery storage procurement in Canadian history, nearly 3,000 megawatts, and the largest competitive energy procurement to secure up to 5,000 megawatts of new power. As Associate Minister of Energy-Intensive Industries, I visited and seen firsthand the transformative investments being made across our province. Job creators choose Ontario for its clean energy grid, top-tier talent, and thriving business environment. I also want to acknowledge Teresa Sarkeesian from the EDA and local distribution companies who've spoken to me about the barriers they face when trying to connect to the grid quickly and cost-effectively. I've been meeting with LDCs from across Ontario, from Georgian Bay to Northern Ontario to Niagara, and their message has been clear. We need to build energy infrastructure faster, and it needs to be affordable. Today, we're addressing that need. When a new energy-intensive business chooses Ontario, the first step is to meet with an LDC to determine whether local infrastructure can handle that added capacity. In too many cases, capacity is maxed out, and those businesses are shouldering the full cost of upgrading that infrastructure themselves. These burdens delay progress. They stand in the way of new high-paying jobs in these key sectors. That's why our government is taking action. By removing barriers and speeding up last-mile connections, we're making it easier for homes and businesses to access a world-class, clean, reliable, and affordable electricity grid. This will ensure that industry can keep investing and growing right here in Ontario, creating more good-paying jobs for families now and in the future. Under Premier Ford and Minister Lecce's leadership, we're ensuring that families and businesses across every corner of this province have the reliable and affordable energy they need to power their future, and we're stepping up to do more. Now I'd like to invite my friend and colleague, Minister Paul Calandra, to share a few more words about what this means for housing in Ontario.
Well, thank you very much. This is obviously a very exciting announcement. You know, building a bigger, better, stronger, safer, more prosperous Ontario obviously starts with building more homes and getting more shovels in the ground. And today's announcement really is a game changer. And I can't thank the two ministers enough for listening and for being able to work with us at Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, but more importantly, for all of those who are building the important infrastructure to help build a bigger, better, and safer province of Ontario. You know, we started a number of months ago reducing and eliminating red tape because we heard from our partners how important it was to eliminate red tape, to eliminate the obstacles that were getting in the way of building more homes across the province of Ontario. And prior to the rapid increase in interest rates, we saw that our home builders were meeting the challenge, but they have said it's not enough, that more had to be done. And in communities across the province, we're seeing this last mile, as we talk about, as the ministers talked about, being an impediment, standing in the way of getting more homes built. So this really is an amazing opportunity for us to utilize the assets and the resources of the province of Ontario to remove obstacles, to remove those barriers, and to get more shovels in the ground and to make life more affordable for all of those who are buying their first home or a rental, whatever it is, whatever your dream of home ownership is, this will help you get that shovel in the ground. And I can't thank both ministers enough, Bill, OHBA, for their work in helping us get here. If it wasn't for their advocacy and of course the enormous uplift of the two ministers, we wouldn't be here today. So I am very, very excited. Thank all the partners for that, and more importantly, I thank both ministers for listening and moving so quickly to get this done today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Scott Andison of the Home Builders.
Thanks very much, Minister Calandra. And this is a really exciting announcement for our industry. So on behalf of OHBA and Build, our GTA partner locally here, this is something that we've been long advocating for, and this is something that couldn't be more excited to be part of today. So on behalf of our 4,000 members across the province, we want to congratulate the Ontario government for moving succinctly and quickly on this issue. Ontario's clean and reliable and affordable electricity grid is one of the key foundations for the future of housing in this province. At the OHBA, we understand the deep connection between affordability and infrastructure. The government steps here today to remove the barriers from home construction, particularly by simplifying and reducing the cost of connecting new developments to the grid, will have a profound impact on our ability to deliver more affordable housing to more Ontarians across the province. Minister Lecce's recognition that the process of connecting new homes to the electricity grid has often been slow and costly, and it's something that the home building industry has been very aware of. These delays and added costs can be significant burdens to builders and future homeowners, and that's why these changes in the rules that are proposed to reduce the upfront capital costs to these connections, while also providing ratepayers a recent price, is critical in this development. So the extension of the revenue horizon from 25 to 40 years is also a forward-thinking solution. And spreading this new cost of infrastructure over this more appropriate period will make it easier to meet the growing demand for housing, but also to reduce the costs of growth and make sure that they are shared equally and don't place unnecessary burden on small numbers of new homeowners. And the creation of the new Electricity Growth Forum is another welcome step to the industry. By bringing together municipalities, utilities, developers, and the OEB, we can work collaboratively to ensure that the electricity infrastructure that's in place is meeting the housing targets and that the connections to those homes are streamlined. This type of collaboration is essential to the work that we do alongside government and our common goal of building more homes faster and ensuring that home ownership is within reach for more Ontarians. So on behalf of OHBA and our members, I want to thank the Ministers of Energy, Municipal Affairs and Housing for their leadership. These changes represent a really important step to meeting Ontario's housing needs and ensuring that we have the infrastructure that we need for the future. Thank you very much.
We will now open up the floor to questions from the media. Please come up to the mic and state your name and outlet. As a reminder, it's one question, one follow-up. We'll start with our first reporter.
Good morning.
Morning, everybody. Hope you guys are as excited to get back to the ledge as I am. Because there's not too many of us here today, I am hoping to ask both you, Minister Lecce, and you, Minister Calandra, a two-parter essentially each. So, Minister Lecce, for yourself, I'm just wondering if in this bill that you're announcing, will there be anything to ensure that developers are passing savings along to home buyers? And then the other topic is just about earlier this year when you were Education Minister, the ministry sent school boards a memo requiring them to put up more of those big blue Ontario Build signs, which the boards themselves pay for. And so I'm just wondering what purpose this serves next to having, almost PC party blue signs at hundreds of schools in the lead up to a potential election.
Well, I will take the energy question, and I will defer the latter to the new Minister of Education. But what I can assure you is the biggest challenge we're facing in building homes in the province is a lack of power. It's one of the great input challenges that I keep hearing from home builders and from prospective home buyers. And that's why today's announcement is very consequential, because what we're actually doing is we're demonstrating that we're listening to the young families we serve who want to get in the game of owning a home. And today's announcement is a positive step forward when it comes to reducing costs up front, costs that are exclusively borne by the home builder, by the homeowner, who ultimately has to pay that additional, in the example I provided, $20,000 cost that otherwise could have been $4,000. So this plan saves money, and that savings will be borne on the home buyer, on the investor, on the manufacturer that wants to build in this province. We see this as a positive step to reducing costs and getting more homes built faster. We're excited about this. And what you heard from the association industry is that they've been advocating for this type of practical step because they know, like we know, that if we reduce upfront costs, we reduce costs for the end user. And that's that young family. That's that new Canadian that came here to dream to own a home, and we don't want them to lose that dream. So that's why today's announcement is going to save money for people and ultimately reduce costs for industry.
Okay, thank you. And Minister Calandra, my first of the two-parter for you is we understand that the Integrity Commissioner has submitted recommendations for a bill you've promised to better hold municipal politicians to account. Just wondering that now that the Commissioner has done this, if you can share when this legislation will be ready and tabled. And then the other piece is, homelessness is obviously something, under your portfolio. And, we're anticipating that in the fall economic statement, there's going to be an announcement that $200 are going to go out to every Ontarian. Just wondering, with the number of ODSP and Ontario Works recipients who are increasingly homeless, why this money wouldn't be better spent increasing those payments, as many have long called for.
Yeah, on your question on the Integrity Commissioners, he did provide us with a series of recommendations. There was a lot to unpack in the recommendations that he provided us. I think it'll mean a massive change to how our municipal partners handle these types of complaints. I'm going to continue to work with them a little bit because, as I said, there was so much to unpack there. It is my desire to get legislation drafted and presented as soon as possible. I haven't gone to AMO yet, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, to give them the highlights of what the Commissioner has said. So it is my desire to get something to them with AMO's full support prior to the end of the session. But there is a lot in his recommendations. I was actually very, very happy with what he provided to us. On your second question, look, I don't think it matters. Like I can say to this, I'll let the finance minister talk about what's happening in the Feds. But when you talk about homelessness, I don't think people will care if I tell you we've increased funding to the highest levels in provincial history. Nobody cares about that. What they want to see is evidence that people have the homes that they need, that they have the supports that they need. We've announced, of course, recently these heart hubs, which will deal with some of our most challenging situations on the streets. We're working very closely with our municipal partners to deal very specifically with some of the challenges that they are facing. We're working with AMO, with the big city mayors on this, and there will be more coming not only in the Feds, but over the next couple of months to help us address in a much bigger way, in a much more focused way, some of the direct challenges we're seeing in some communities across the province of Ontario.
Hi, good morning. Barbara with iPolitics. A question for Calandra. So the latest data from the government on municipalities' development charges show that together they have over $10 billion in unspent DCs. And these are the funds used to build support infrastructure to enable housing. So Lindsay Jones, the AMO's policy director, she said that the reason why they're struggling to spend these funds is because this process is highly regulated under the Development Charges Act. But there are areas where the province hasn't been able to start new homes simply because, like, the water infrastructure is not in place yet. So, would you consider reviewing this act to make it easier for municipalities to spend these funds?
Yeah, look, we've been very clear to our municipal partners that when you accumulate DCs, they're to be accumulated for the purposes that they're after. We've heard from our home building partners that it does frustrate them when they are paying for services that the municipalities then are not undertaking on their behalf. So I will be meeting with AMO. We'll be talking about the massive amount of money that they have in their reserves. We want to see more water, sewer, and water infrastructure put in the ground. Look, we moved ahead unilaterally with respect to the largest build of sewer and water infrastructure in the province's history, a $3 billion provincial program. But we absolutely, positively want to see monies that are in DC reserves utilized for the purposes of expanding that so that we get more shovels in the ground, that we can reduce costs. It is the number one thing that we hear from our builders: red tape and the costs of doing business with our municipal partners, and it is something that we are taking up with AMO. So why we keep talking about eliminating obstacles and making it cheaper to get shovels in the ground. That's why today's announcement is a very, very, very important step on that direction.
And do you agree that's the reason why they are failing to spend the funds though? And also because lowering the development charges helps homeowners save money and also housing affordability and all that. So would you consider assisting municipalities into this process of like selecting perhaps which projects they probably won't be able to complete in a reasonable time frame and just focus on like perhaps taking them out, so focus on projects that can be done so they can lower these charges?
Yeah, we're seeing in some municipalities doing just that on their own. Burlington has taken steps to reduce their development charges. I know Mayor Parrish in Mississauga is also being very, very aggressive on this. Development charges paying for what it is that for the applications that are brought forward. So there are a number of municipalities that are taking proactive steps on their own, and I suspect that home builders and the industry themselves will start to look at those communities that are taking proactive steps to make the costs of doing business cheaper and the cost of getting shovels in the ground cheaper. But at the same time, as we said, where we can make a direct impact, such as today's announcement, we will not hesitate to do that. And over the next number of months, we will continue to reduce obstacles, to eliminate red tape, and to do all that we can to ensure that we can get shovels in the ground. Because it's not just about interest rates. We've heard this clearly from our home building partners. It's not just about reducing interest rates. It's about putting in place the climate for a long-term building boom across the province of Ontario. And literally everything is on the table in order to meet that challenge.
Hi, Spencer with CBC News. This is a question for Minister Lecce. Cuba is having an electrical issue, power issue. Has the Cuban government reached out to Ontario for help, or have you heard through maybe the federal government to perhaps send help down to Cuba for help them with their electrical situation?
Yeah, I've seen the devastation of what's happening, and for the people of Cuba, I've not received any official requests from that government or from the federal government at this time. What I know is when we had a request in the U.S. following the devastating hurricanes that hit the United States, the south of the U.S., Hydro One and the government deployed over 150 energy workers to help return the lights and the energy to help strengthen the resiliency of their grid. And that's been very important. And we stand ready to help in the U.S., as we have in many parts of the world, to help our neighbors. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, that concludes our press conference. Thank you everyone for coming.